Welcome to Bondian, I'm Ian, and today we are talking about the upcoming 26th official James Bond film, and it is finally gathering some pace. What with very little happening since the release of No Time to Die up until pretty much last year, when Eon Productions were quite open in that nothing was happening with this movie. Barbara Broccoli took umbrance to something that an Amazon executive said in a meeting, calling James Bond content, and then of course just a little bit later it was announced that Eon Productions had come to an agreement with Amazon for Amazon to gain creative control over Bond 26. Shortly after that, new producers were announced, David Heyman and Amy Pascal, and then literally within the last month we've had the announcement of Denis Villeneuve to be the director of this movie, who has previously been in contention to direct a Bond movie, and of course last week with the news of Stephen Knight becoming the writer or lead writer of Bond 26. I'm sure Denis will actually start doing rewrites and has the story premise pretty much laid out bare bones where he wants this story to go. So Bond 26 is looking like it's going to be a decent movie. It certainly has a solid foundation, but there are still some things that I think we all would like with this movie. First and foremost, I think the main thing is, certainly from my perspective, is I want this to feel like a classic Bond movie. Of course, brand new producers, brand new director, brand new writer. There is always the danger that this is going to feel radically different to what we've had before, but I would love this to have that classic Bond feeling, and it's something that I do think is possible. However, what with the directing style of Villeneuve and Stephen Knight's writing style, we could be in for something more akin to the more recent movies, the grittier feel of the Craig era, which, to be fair, I have no issues with. I do like Daniel Craig's portrayal of Bond. I still have issues with the ending of No Time to Die. I still don't think that sits right with me, and it spoiled, in my opinion, what was a really good movie right up until kind of midway through the final act. But I think it does give us an idea where this movie could potentially go, and it's somewhere that, you know what, I actually would be okay with. Of course, when Timothy Dalton did the grittier Bond in Licence to Kill back in 1989, that was so far out of left field, no one was expecting it. It really was ahead of its time, but I do think the Daniel Craig movies in particular, and I suppose to a certain degree the Bourne movies as well, have kind of got us used to the more grittier style of movie, and certainly the more grittier style of Bond. So I do think that we could get something like that. However, if I'm honest, I would like something more akin to maybe a Brosnan, maybe a hybrid Brosnan, Craig. I don't know, but I would like something with that more classic feeling, and the last time we had that was with GoldenEye, and that certainly felt like a more classic style Bond movie. And also to a degree Casino Royale, that actually does kind of feel like a classic Bond movie, but without a lot of the tropes that we kind of became accustomed to up until 2006. And moving on to the Bond character, there's a lot of discussion about potentially a younger Bond coming in, and I certainly wouldn't have any issues with that. However, I don't think they should go too young. I'd certainly think early to mid 30s is definitely the way to go. If they hired someone in their 20s, I would kind of think they'd have to go down the reboot option, which really in this movie I do not want to see. I want to see Bond as a fully fledged agent out on a mission. And that moves me on to the next thing. I don't want this to be a personal vendetta or a personal Bond movie. I want Bond to be out on a mission, just doing what Bond does best, and literally not having the baggage of having it tied to Bond going rogue or something happening with somebody in MI6. I really just want this to be a straight up mission, and that's something that we've really not had for probably, what, I think realistically speaking, we've probably got to go back to the Roger Moore era, where there hasn't been these personal elements involved in the storyline. So I definitely think we're just due a straight up basic mission. Moving on to the locations that I would like to see in this movie, I think that is something that really the world is our oyster. Certainly Italy, no, we've seen enough of Italy in the last 5 movies. I really do think Italy has been overdone. Granted, it's been different parts of Italy, but Italy has certainly been overdone. So realistically speaking, anywhere but Italy I would like to see. I've always had a hankering, and I know a lot of people, certainly that live in the States, don't feel that their own country is kind of exotic or scenic enough to be in a Bond movie, but I've always kind of had a hankering. I would love to see James Bond like somewhere like the Grand Canyon, which is just so epic and vast, and I think they could do a great action sequence, aerial or otherwise, in the Grand Canyon. That is somewhere I actually think would actually be pretty good. Also, New York. New York is a great city, and I'd love to see Bond go back there, because realistically speaking, again, License to Kill was the last time we saw Bond in New York, and that was, what, 1973? So I think there's certainly opportunities within America where we could go and actually see something quite good. Other locations, yes, the Caribbean. I would love to see Bond back in the Caribbean, and certainly doing a little bit of water sports, scuba diving, because that is a kind of part of Bond that we've not really seen for a long time, where he's just sort of playfully enjoying life. So let's just see Bond out there just enjoying life, doing a little bit of scuba diving, a bit of water sports, enjoying life before he's called back to MI6 to be given his mission briefing. And in terms of other locations, I do think Bond is long overdue to go to Australia. We've never seen that in a Bond movie, and that could be something quite special. And also maybe Bond going back to somewhere like Japan. It's been a long time since Bond's really been somewhere oriental. And yes, I know that in Die Another Day, Bond went to Hong Kong and Korea, but that really didn't actually film out there. It was all filmed in the UK, and I would love to see Bond actually over somewhere in Asia. That would be pretty cool in my opinion. And in terms of the music, yes, I would love to see David Arnold come back and create the score for Bond 26. I genuinely think since John Barry, David Arnold has really encapsulated Bond and made the soundtracks his own, and I think it's long overdue for him coming back. David Arnold would be top of my list, but also Hans Zimmer did a great job with No Time to Die. I think he could certainly come back and produce another decent score, but my money personally would be on David Arnold. I think he's definitely long overdue a comeback. In terms of the MI6 regulars, I do feel like, and I don't expect this to happen for 1 minute, but I actually would like to see the current MI6 crew come back. So Ray Fiennes as M, Naomi Harris as Moneypenny, and Ben Whishaw as Q. I would love to see them come back and reprise their roles. It'll give a little bit of continuity between the old guard of Eon and the new Amazon MGM movies. I don't see that happening, but it is something that I actually would like, and it would give a little bit of comfort to the audience to actually have that continuity. And Bond girls, we've got to talk about Bond girls, right? I know there was talk recently of potentially Sydney Sweeney being cast as the Bond girl in the next movie. I personally don't see that happening, although if they did cast her, I think she could do a very good job. I think she is a good actress. I definitely think she could actually play the part very well and do it justice. But historically, American Bond girls haven't had the best track record, unfortunately, when we look back at, well, who can forget Tanya Roberts, Stacey Sutton in A View to a Kill, and then more recently, I say recently, God, it was 1997, but Denise Richards as Christmas Jones in The World Is Not Enough. I actually do like Denise Richards. I do think she actually is a pretty decent actress, but the part just didn't do her justice. And moving on to the opening titles, I think Daniel Kleinman would be brilliant if he came back. He's done some of the best opening credits of the series, and he really has made them his own, back from the style of Maurice Binder, but the style that Kleinman has done, he really has made the credits his own, so I would love to see him continue. And you can really see the difference actually between Kleinman's credits and when MK12 did them for Quantum of Solace, so genuinely I hope they bring back Daniel Kleinman for the credits. And in terms of the story for the new movie, we've already touched upon it, but I hope it is more of the classic formula where Bond is called back into the office, he's given his mission, he's given his briefing. The MI6 crew I would like to see in smaller roles, more of a supporting role, because in the Craig era in particular, they were playing, to my taste, a little bit too much of the story, and it should really be more about Bond on his mission. So I think scale back the roles of the MI6 crew, let Bond stand out, make this Bond's movie. And I also would like to see that Bond is actually having fun and enjoying what he's doing, and he's just not brooding the whole movie. So we'll see what sort of story they come up with, but I'm just kind of hoping that all of the ingredients from the classic movies are there, and basically going back to what Stephen Knight said is he wants to do the same but different, but bigger and stronger and bolder. Well, let's hope that is exactly what he does, because I would love Bond 26, the first Amazon MGM Bond, to start this new era with a bang, and I think that the potential is most definitely there. So let me know in the comments what you would like to see in the next Bond movie and where you think that this is going to go, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button, it is really appreciated, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.